All right, we will call the council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Wakefield. Here. Knutson. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Bruck. Here. Hall.
Here.
All right, first of all, was the ATV thing on the agenda tonight?
Nope.
No. Okay, I thought it was. I was looking for it.
Nope.
So, okay. No need going there then? Nope. All right, the 2023 MS4 annual report.
What about comments and suggestions from citizens?
Well, we could do that too. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, this is your opportunity in citizen comments to discuss anything that you would like to talk about that relates to the city that is not currently on the agenda tonight. People that have something to say should be residents, need to be residents, property owners in the city of Hudson, or business owners. Please keep your comments brief. Try not to repeat other people's comments. And I think that's it. So, does anybody have a comment? Please identify yourself and your address.
My name's Tamara Butler with my husband Ray Butler. We live on 5th Street in Hudson, city of Hudson. I heard that the UTV golf cart thing isn't on the agenda tonight. I wanted to speak to it because I've heard a little bit about it. Just wondering, it seems to open up a big can of worms that this city doesn't need. I don't understand who it's supposed to benefit, and I see a lot of drawbacks to it. I live near several schools and would be in the area where they would be allowed. We already have a lot of congestion in downtown, parking issues, all sorts of different things like that. And we're not Pathfinder Village. We're not a retirement community. We're a city, and I don't think we need golf carts and UTVs in the downtown area. I don't see any benefit to it.
I second that. It's useless. It doesn't benefit anybody. It's just a joyride.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, thanks for your comments. Any other comments?
Sure. So I know a lot of you, but my name is Roy Schoberg. I live at 1108 Vine Street in Hudson, and I appreciate how nice that Vine Street is now. So we paid a lot of money for that, including myself, and it's a nice, smooth street. So that's good. Also, another thing that's good is the library. I was at the open house, and I saw Joy and Dean there, and I remember back when we first moved into that library, how magnificent it was, and it's been fully restored now, and it just made my heart just sing for what our community has done. And I happen to be associated with the Phipps as well. And when anyone comes to the city of Hudson, where do we direct them? We direct them to our beautiful lakefront park. It's been beautified now. It'll be even better once the water recedes, of course. But also, they look at the Phipps and they look at the beautiful library. And that really brings a lot of people here. You ask any realtor, they'll say, yeah, we bring them by that area first, and then the high school and the government center. I have a long history, maybe just about as long as Randy's, dealing with the library, don't we, Randy? And I'm very pleased not only that the open house was so successful and that we have a magnificent library director here, but also I was very pleased that our city now has a chance to be in control of the library. Back when I was the president of the library, I was pained when I would get the support of the library for an increase in funding, maybe 5%. And then we'd go to the neighbors, and the neighbors would say, 2. And then we'd all settle for 2. And because of those hamstrings that our neighbors had with the levy, they could really do nothing about it. The city at least enjoyed more construction, and we had that going for us. But you couldn't see that construction in the village of North Hudson. So no increase, no increase, no increase, and sadly, our library was seriously underfunded for year after year after year. And Rich, you attacked the problem in your way, I attacked the problem in my way, and now we're all together because the county no longer has an excuse not to pay 100%. So that's good, all right? So that's great. So now it's just up to the people in this room to decide how much to fund our library. And I just want to hearken back when I was the president. I also had a steering committee appointed back then. Susie Gilbert was on it. Former principal Ed Lucas was on it. Jeff Zeiss, who has moved away, but he was very strong supporter of the library. We were on that, and we sent out a survey. And the survey was, would you support an increase in your taxes to help fund improvements for the library? And guess who voted the strongest? All the residents of the city of Hudson. I looked for that old survey report. I'm sorry, but I left it somewhere else in some other archive. My wife was looking and said, "What are you doing, Roy?" I'm tearing up. I found a lot of old newspaper clippings about Roy Schoberg appearing in front of Randy Morissette, but I didn't want to bring those up again. But the point being is this community is ready to support it, and we want this library to be a shining star filled with programs, not just the cheapest, most efficient way of handing out a book. If you want that, you can just hand out like movies at a Walmart. That's not what we're about. We're about a state-of-the-art library that is a community center for this lovely city. So, Rich, I hope you can reach your goal of having a magnificent library here, and I'll support you however I can, and I'll support Shelley too. Just wanted to mention that as you bring up votes on the library board, I'm not going to run because my heart won't allow it to be a part of the library struggles anymore. But I'll surely sit behind and support anybody that's venturing out or has questions. I do suggest this, though.
It's on the agenda tonight?
The appointment of a board member is.
We're getting close to,
Right.
it's an agenda
Yeah,
topic tonight.
I'm not talking about
Thank you, Roy.
board
Yeah, you're
members.
doing a lot of good background, but we can't have comments about what agenda item it is.
That's why I'm avoiding them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
So I do want to say that the county does have the right, if it's supporting more than 1/6 of the revenue, to also name someone. So that's for your future consideration too. So thank you for listening to me. Good luck with the library.
Thank you, Roy. Any other comments? Mary Claire?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you so much. My name is Mary Claire Potter, President of the Hudson Chamber at 219 2nd Street. Okay, gotta remember that. So a couple updates for you tonight. Do you consider yourself a nacho aficionado? Anyone?
Like them?
Sure. Do you have any foodie friends that are up for the challenge? Hudson is hosting its first Nacho Battaglia. So we have 11 different restaurants that have signed up to be in this battle. And so you have between April 28th and May 7th to go to these fabulous establishments and vote on your favorite nachos. So we'll have a Nacho Supreme winner, and then your name could be picked to win chamber checks for going out and doing that and supporting locally. We're also celebrating Small Business Week this week, April 30th through May 6th, and want to thank publicly all of the small businesses for their innovation, resilience, and critical contribution that they give to the economic growth of this community and the county. And it's exciting, you'll know, in the area there's a lot of new businesses that are opening in the next upcoming weeks too, so a lot of spots are filled. The Hudson Community Expo, if you haven't been up there, I invite you to come up this Sunday. We have over 80 businesses and organizations that are going to be vendors up at Hudson High School. May 7th from 11 to 3:30 p.m. We have entertainment throughout the day. We also are partnering with Coco's Heart craft sale where they have 40 vendors, and we're going to have live animals and fun. They'll be outside, but and food vendors. So invite you to come out and check that out. National Tourism Week is May 7th through the 13th, and we thank all of our lodging properties and everyone who welcomes visitors to the Hudson area. to our community. And then lastly, on May 18th is Explore Your Hudson. We have 28 different businesses that are offering demonstrations, fun specials, and so forth. We have swag bags and passports with a portion of the proceeds from this event going to support Operation Help. We know that Hudson will be busy again this summer with the lodging properties, a lot of them already full for the summer with weddings and groups. So events continue to help grow the community to be a great place to live, work, visit, and do business. So on behalf of the Hudson Chamber, thank you for your continued partnership, and I look forward to our work together. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't do the MSA.
On vacation.
2023 MS4 annual report.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Mraz, Director of Public Works, and I get the opportunity to share our annual MS4 report, talk about stormwater. And before I begin, I have a brief video that kind of simplifies why I'm here tonight and why the city has to comply with MS4 regulations that are established by the DNR. It's a short 2-minute video that was put together by one of our partner communities. One of the directors, their daughter, put this stop animation video together, and it's really kind of a neat, simple way to kind of bring awareness to stormwater.
No signal.
Oops.
Okay, thanks. It's like Gumby.
There's supposed to be some music going on here, but we'll just let it play. It's Mr. Morissette changing his oil in his driveway.
Man, he's got your beard.
Yeah, right. And then Mr. Kennedy on a Wednesday cleaning his front yard.
Need
to shave.
Yeah. Get a haircut.
That's pretty cute.
Yeah, the person actually put this together is presenting it down in Milwaukee in a couple weeks at a stormwater conference. They got awards for it, so yeah, it's pretty cute.
It's cute. Oh, that fish. That's so good.
And that's the organization, the consortium that we're a part of, Rain Rivers of Western Wisconsin. So, yeah, it's kind of a cute video. Yeah, it's on YouTube. It does have music, and it's pretty cute with the music. All right, so having said that, we'll proceed. All right, so what is MS4? MS4s are municipal separate storm sewer system permit that we acquire from the DNR every year. And so we have to apply for this because we are an urbanized area, over 10,000 people. There are approximately 245 in Wisconsin, and we were, back in 2014 is when we became an MS4 community. Some other information is the stormwater utility to help fund the programs was developed in 2012. And then in 2017, we hired SCH to put together our stormwater management plan, modeling, so on and so forth. So we've been following that document ever since. So just kind of a brief synopsis of what we have for our facilities. We have over 400,000 lineal feet of storm sewer pipe in the ground within the city of Hudson, almost 3,000 catch basin and inlets, 170 outlets, 1,040 manholes, and 118 stormwater facilities. These are our ditches, swales, and stormwater pond facilities. And you can kind of see the breakdown between public and private. So our MS4 annual report categories are as follows. I'm not going to read each one because they don't change from year to year, but these are the items that we need to track throughout the season and make sure that we're documenting that we're fulfilling the requirements for these. First one was the public education outreach, public involvement and participation. So this is where Rain Rivers comes into effect. We are part of that organization, and on their behalf they do sponsorships, advertising, and this presentation here tonight, I'll go up to my office and I'll log it in, and I'll submit that to the DNR for next year. Other things that we do as far as participation are Earth Day cleanups, Riverfest. We have website, social media, passive media postings. This summer I'm going to do a citywide mailing to all the residents, probably before the fall, for leaf pickup, just to remind people not to blow their leaves out into the gutter. So that's public education, outreach, and public involvement and participation. Next thing is illicit discharge. So we've identified 70 total outfalls. These are outfalls at daylight into public waters. So the St. Croix River, Lake Malibu, and 34 of them do daylight into those waters. And so last season in 2022, we evaluated 24 of those. And it's basically a random inspection of our storm sewer outfalls. And after it rains, we go down there to make sure that there's no discoloration coming out of the pipes. If there are, then we have to investigate it, and we report that to the DNR. Luckily, last year, we didn't find any. But if you're out and about walking on trails throughout the city of Hudson and you're seeing some discoloration, whether it's pink fluids, oily fluids, milk, you name it, call the city of Hudson and let me know, and we'll send staff out there to document it and try to find the source, because it's very imperative that we don't pollute our nearby waters. Post-construction stormwater management. So this is one that's very familiar to everybody in the community. The city of Hudson, like I said in a previous slide, has over 80 ponds to maintain, and a lot of them have been neglected over the years, and so we're at a point where we're having to go in and do kind of complete restoration. That lower left-hand corner photo is of the pond right next to Grandview Drive. We're going to be finishing that one up this summer, but it was a very full-scale pond restoration. It was vegetation removal, it was dredging. We're going to go back in and shape it this year, seed it, plant some pine trees back in there, and make it look really pretty again, to try and make it look like to the one on the lower right-hand side. That one's up in the Carmichael Ridge development. So that's the goal for everyone, to kind of look like that, but we got a long way to go. Construction site pollution control. So these are permits that need to be taken out if the developing land is 1 acre or more in size. And so each developer is required to pull a separate permit. And with that permit, we have to go out there and inspect to make sure that their erosion control is up to snuff. And so every month we try to visit each site, and we look at inlet protections, erosion socks, silt fence, so on and so forth. And if we find that they are not in compliance, we contact the contractor, say, hey, got to fix it. If they don't, then we have repercussions as far as in our ordinance to apply penalties to that construction site, complete with actually shutting them down if they don't follow or comply. And then the last thing here is pollution prevention. This is street sweeping mainly. We also do catch basin cleaning with our vac trailer. But last year in 2022, we collected 375 cubic yards of material with our street sweeping program. I kind of actually found this to be very interesting. So we do our winter maintenance practices, we do strictly salt, right? We don't use any sand salt mixture. And for instance, Chippewa Falls does a sand salt mixture, and they swept up nearly 1,000 cubic yards of material last year. So they're almost, a little over double of what we put down on our roads because they use that mixture. So there is some advantages to going straight salt, even though, we're trying to always find ways to limit our salt use. That's a lot less on the roads. And then to look at our salt usage back, throughout the last 4 years, fairly consistent. Obviously, last year and this year, very heavy winters, a little more salt going down on the roads. That's all, we try to plan as best we can, but ultimately the weather kind of dictates when we go out and how much we have to put down. So stormwater quality management, and I'm on the clock. Mike Johnson said I had less than 5 minutes here. So this, in a nutshell, is the requirements that the DNR imposes upon the city. That is total suspended solids reduction, which we are meeting, and then Lake St. Croix has a nutrient TMDL, total mass daily load, which we are also meeting. So needless to say, Hudson is in a very good position. And if these numbers were to change, we would just either increase sweeping, have to build other facilities to maintain or capture that water before it gets to the public waters. So that's good news. Funding. How do we fund this program? So like I said, back in 2012, the stormwater utility was created. 2019, upon my arrival here, City Council and Finance Committee helped garner a increase to our stormwater utility to help pay for these programs because it is self-funded by the utility. Staff, pond training, public education, you name it, street sweeping, fixing the street sweeper, buying additional equipment to clean our sumps, so on and so forth. So it all comes out of the stormwater utility. One REU is $12 a quarter, so on every quarterly utility bill you should see that $12 charge, right? And our 2022 revenue was $538,423 and change. Our expenses were fairly similar to that, $514,155.94. Try to spend, as much as we're taking in. Our utility balance as of 4/23, this is cash on hand in that utility fund, is $502,016.06. So in a very good spot there with our utility. That helps us with, like I said, the pond cleanings, because the Grandview example, for that one pond alone, and I think I brought this up at a previous meeting, we're pushing probably between $100,000 and $125,000 for that one pond to clean it up. So it gives you an idea of the type of money that we're looking at when we're maintaining our facilities. And then looking ahead for 2023, obviously we're gonna finish up pond 151 and 152. We're gonna try and dredge pond 141, that's across from the post office, our really large one. If you see on the far south end, if you drive past it, throughout the week, you'll notice that there's a lot of sediment down there and it lost a lot of capacity, which is causing a lot of issues downstream before it gets out to the St. Croix River. We're having some swales that are getting constantly blown out, so on and so forth, so we need to get in there and do some dredging work. We're continuing to use our GIS tools and then incorporate our stormwater upgrades in our street projects, so 3rd Street Hill, Laurel Avenue, and then Pearls Trail. And that is all I have.
Excellent.
All right.
Mike,
Thank you.
questions? Anybody?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Calendar.
Approve the meeting minutes from April 24th, 2023, regular council meeting. Approve claims in the amount of $483,858.34. And approve a drainage and utility easement agreement for 108 Heritage Boulevard, John Sikowski.
Move to approve?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Wakefield?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Bruck?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Consent agenda's approved. Appointment of 2024 Library Board.
Okay, so we talked about this roughly a month ago now. And so at that time, the proposal was that we advertise now to appoint a library board that'll basically serve as an ad hoc committee, just so it can stay involved with what the current library board's doing. There's an anticipation that some of the current library board members would be appointed to the new library board, so they'll have a little bit of overlap and continuity, and just give the new library board that'll take effect in January of next year a chance to be involved up to this point. We also had a proposal from Councilmember Knutson as well that was included in the packet that talks about instead of appointing the library board now, appointing a library advisory committee. So there's that option, and then there is also a proposed update to our ordinances. So, I guess what the conversation for the council tonight is, how would you like to proceed with this? The one note I have about the ordinance is we do have to update it, but I don't see a rush to do it at this point in time. We'll do it at some point this year. But we want to give the city attorney a chance to take a look at it a little bit, before we do that. So I guess I'd be more looking as far as how would you like to look at this transitional library board versus an ad hoc committee sort of thing.
Anybody?
So we're not making any motions on resolutions or the ordinance change tonight?
So I would say, I mean, you can, obviously. I don't think you need to with the ordinance change tonight, just because I think we'll probably have some other things that we want to clarify with the whole ordinance change, so I don't think we need to address that right away. So I would say nothing with the ordinance change tonight unless you'd like to, but if we do, I'd still like to have the city attorney have more time to review that first before we do it. So I guess going back to that, no.
So what are your?
Say nothing with the ordinance. So the choices would be, the first attachment is that notice of library board appointments, and that would be basically appointing the full library board right now. And you may have some overlap between existing members, but that just becomes an ad hoc committee that sits in at their meetings, gets all their packet information, things like that, kind of gets involved. Or the other option that's on the table is the resolution, which forms that three-person advisory committee. So that would be the other option, or honestly, you can do whatever you want. So if somebody else has a different idea, we can throw that one out there too. So basically, I would be saying either going with appointing the full 9-member board now, with the understanding that they'll actually become the library board January 1, or the other alternative, Councilmember Knutson's put out there was that just a 3-person kind of transitional committee. So those are kind of the main 2 options right now, unless somebody else has another idea they want to throw on the table.
And with the appointment, you mean sharing the notice that we're going to be looking for people?
That would be that first attachment. We post that notice for library appointments. That would go out, and then that would end up coming back to the council. Usually we give it a month to take applications, and it would come back in a month to the council then for confirmation of the mayor's appointments.
Well, I think we should go ahead and post it, move the process forward.
Well, we have to determine which route we're going to take, I think, first.
Well, I agree with 9-panel board.
So, and frankly, that's what I would like to see on the agenda for the next meeting, is that we move forward with that recommendation, that we put the advisory board in place, or not advisory board, but the new library board in place to the extent that we can by law.
Mr. Mayor, could you get closer to the microphone?
Thank you. I apologize.
Thank you.
I do that all the time. We need a microphone back here somewhere.
Just need the longer arm.
A headset.
Yeah, I just take off the lean back function on the chair probably.
If everyone else is shy, I'll go ahead and speak. I wanted to let other people speak first, since I have put some ideas forward. But if with your permission, I would like to talk about a bigger issue facing us as council members of the city of Hudson, and narrow it down then to the library. And I think we have a number of issues coming forward that this applies to. We are elected to represent people in our district, yet we serve together to represent the whole city of Hudson. I think all of us bring some perspective depending on where we live and do business and things like that in town, but we're all committed to working for what's the best for the residents, the business owners, the property owners of the city of Hudson. And we're all probably also involved very much in what I call the greater Hudson community, which, I mean, Hudson is like, if you've lived here very long, to me, it's like a big group hug. There's the school district, the YMCA, the FIPS. There's so many ways you can get involved. You might be in Rotary, Lions Club, your church. All of those draw very strong, supportive donors, people who give their time and money to these projects that do benefit the greater Hudson community. But the 6 of us sitting here, plus our elected mayor, are responsible for the residents of the city. We're the only ones that are really keyed in on what's best for our city residents. We're getting lots of ideas brought forward to us that, boy, we should do this, Hudson should do this. Everyone kind of assumes we have plenty of money. Hudson's one of the richest places in the state, right? Income averages, things like that. Yet we all know, because we've been on the budget committee, we've tried to eke out a trail maintenance on public works, and barely have the money to do some of those things. So I think that we need to really do our due diligence. This is an opportunity with the library. We are going to have a different library. We're transitioning to a different format. And the state lays down a lot of regulations about what can and can't be done. The county has a big role in what can and cannot be done. Once the library board is appointed and in place, those trustees hire the library director, set policy, decide how to spend money, etc. We have very little to say about those 3 steps, what the state's doing, what the county is doing, and what the library trustees do once they're in place. My whole point about this is because it's such an important change and a transition from a joint area library to a strictly municipal public library, that I want us as council members to be as involved as possible in knowing and making the decisions going forward for the funding and all of those issues, so we can make the best decisions, because we're also faced with helping take care of our infrastructure and provide public safety for the city of Hudson. And so we have to be able to zero in a little bit on what our role is there, and I do feel there's a few areas where we have a say. We do have a say in some areas regarding that, and while I threw out the idea of 7 members, because technically we could have 7 members. Do I think that's better than 9? Not necessarily. I think it's fine to have 9 members, but we do need to decide at some point, are we going to have non-residents on the library board? So Randy, to your comment about, well, let's get advertising, we really have to make that discussion tonight, while we don't have to vote in a complete ordinance. And yes, my red line here, that is mine. I brought that forward in March. It's probably far from finished and ready to go. Our attorney will assist us with that. But if we're going to make that decision, we do have the state does require us to have 1 person from the school district. Is that correct? So it's up to us to decide, do we want to have just city residents? Do we want to have non-residents? I'm not here to necessarily argue one over the other tonight, but it is a role we can play. We have limited roles, but I think it's our responsibility to take those roles seriously. And so I even wonder, Randy, how we could start advertising until we've made that decision. Maybe you all are ready to decide tonight. I don't know, but that's my pitch, is to just remember that it's now a city library. And while other people are going to be using it and welcome to use it, and we will be reimbursed through the county system based on circulation rates, we have some decisions to make that are just city residents. And so I think we need to take that responsibility. So, end of story. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that one of the things that I would like to get clarification on is how much is the county projecting in being financially responsible for the library, and then how does what's the formula for them appointing library members to the library based on how much funding they're providing?
It's based on a percentage of their funding that they provide, but then that's their appointments. You know, they're not.
Right. We don't have any.
They go above and beyond our 9 as well.
Oh, they go above and
They go
beyond
above
our
and
9.
beyond.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand
They're not part of that
that
number.
Oh,
They're
okay.
not part of that number.
So
See, those are the kinds of things that we need to know.
So that would not be part of that number. So, and I don't know for sure I'm not sure the 100% the county knows what their percentage is going to be at either.
Right.
So that's the hard part, is that I also don't know that the county board has any interest in appointing a member or any members to the board. I don't know. I do not believe they do that for any other libraries, but they may in this situation. But again, I don't know that answer, if they're going to want to appoint someone or not. But I don't think that if they do decide that or not, we have no control over that. That's up to them if they want to do that.
Right.
So Joyce, I would say I agree with you. I'd like to know those answers too. And that's partly why I was thinking a smaller group, that this transitional, or whatever I called it, Transitional Library Advisory Committee, could really be tasked with reporting to us. Dig in, get the numbers, work with the library director, current board members. I'm not trying to say that we're going to out with the baby in the bathwater in terms of the board. And as I've said previously, it is the mayor's role, and I respect that, to appoint the members of the library board, who then have quite a bit of autonomy. I thought that this advisory committee could help us answer those questions. So we have a few months here before we get into our fall budget, and to get a deeper understanding of it, and that we could still in a few months begin to stand up that next committee but this one could maybe get started now. I'm sorry, yes, I'll quit hogging the floor.
I'm just thinking, and I'm sorry, Mike, would you?
Go first.
If it's from June 1 to December 31st, and I'm just thinking about all that's going to come their way in that short window of time, how can they really get up to speed that quick and be able to give us, I mean, that's a lot to take in, and to expect them to be ready to go and give us some suggestions by December 31st. That's a concern I have, whereas if we appoint, go with the mayor's recommendation and the city's recommendation, that they would have a much longer time to come back and give us that kind of knowledge and gain the expertise. That's a concern I have.
Well, and if I can just comment too, I mean, the point of some of this is that it is very true that the council is going to have a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but they will have decisions to make on this process. And, some of those decisions, the biggest one's going to be financial. The council sets the amount that the library receives, but the library board is responsible for how they utilize those dollars. So that's going to be, obviously one of our main discussions is what is the amount that the council wants to set for the library, and that's going to be based off of the fact that we will be getting a transfer of levy capacity from our former partners to be able to levy more and things like that. And staff will be presenting options to the council as we, start the budget process for, how you can structure that and how that can look. And so, staff will be doing that. As far as the ordinance itself, while there'll be some things in there, a lot of the details for the library board are set statutorily already. So there will be some clarification that we'll need to do in the ordinance and do some cleanup and things like that. But I don't know that there's going to be a lot of major changes that come out through the ordinance necessarily. Now, I know we're talking about non-residents or residents or not, but in the notice that we prepared, we say that by statute, up to 2 members could be non-city residents. Not that they have to be. That's going to be a council decision to decide if you want to have non-city residents or not, and that's still part of this process. So even if we advertise now, depending on what kind of applications we get, things like that, the council can still make that decision at the time when they appoint, do we want to see 2 non-residents or not? You don't have to. That's that will be a council decision to make. But then the thought behind getting the board going now is just the fact that I want them more involved with the library board side of things. And I want them seeing what's going on there, because that's where they're going to step in and take their role, is on the library side, not on the council side. The council they'll have certain responsibilities through this process as we transition over, but the library board won't be involved in how much money they get. Now, the library board will be having conversations with library staff and the existing board about what do we want to see our budget? What do we think we'd like to see next year? How would we like to utilize that? What will that budget look like? Those sort of things. They'll be weighing in on that and providing it to the council for further discussion when we talk about, okay, here's what they're asking, how much do we feel comfortable providing? That sort of thing. So we have to remember that there's definitely a separation between the city council and the library board. And so I think we have basically 2 different proposals, because what I'm saying is getting the library board going so they can get active with the current library board and the current library staff and see what they're doing. And Councilmember Knudsen's is more to have a committee that's going to help the council figure out our side of things. I think that's the way it sounds to me. So I feel like we maybe have a couple different things with what these proposals would be. And, as far as getting more information on what the county numbers would be, staff will provide all these things. Once we get the numbers from the county about here's what our minimum amount's going to be that we're required to levy for the library. Once the county knows that, probably in June sometimes, we'll at least have a good estimate of that. We're going to provide that as part of our budgeting process. Once we get a better estimate from the county administrator about what their contribution will be towards the library, if they meet the threshold, which I don't know that they will, but if they meet the threshold to be able to appoint a member, we'll ask, can you bring this up at the county board? Do you intend to do this or not? We want to know these things. So we will definitely, as staff, be bringing that information back to the council as we go. It's just that we don't have all those answers yet because we don't know them. And that's out of our control. Some of these numbers are out of our control yet and things. So, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I definitely see a little bit of a difference between what the role of these two would be if we did that.
I think that it's really a good idea to have at least some of the library board members in place so that January 1st, most of them are well educated on what their responsibilities are, how things are going, and what they need to be doing. So I agree with that. And one of the pieces that keeps going in my mind because of, past things. All right, so we set the amounts, but then the library board decides how it's spent. How do we, all right, so let's say that we wanted, we're willing to put some money in for, say, extended hours, or say, so we cannot even.
The council can make recommendations as part of the money that is allocated for the library and levied for the library. But ultimately, the library board can say, nope, we'd rather pay more salary than have more hours. They can make that decision. Now, in the council's then ability to address that is next year you can provide a different amount of funding that you would like to the library. Also, as library board members come up, the council has the opportunity, the mayor and the council have the opportunity to appoint and confirm members that maybe are better in line with what the council thinks the library should be doing, that sort of thing. But ultimately, all you can do is recommend how the levy dollars are spent. You don't have any control over that, though.
And I understand that. I guess what I'm thinking is, shouldn't the requests be coming from the library board telling us what they need in order to pay for the things that they believe are important, so that we can approve the funding for those items?
Yep,
And
that is exactly the process. And so which hasn't really happened much, because basically we have a maintenance of effort that we have to exempt amount that we have to maintain. And as was discussed before, when you have all these partners, we can't be the one going up higher with our levy limit restriction issues and the others aren't. So we've been having this issue for a while, but now that it's going to be a city only, that is pretty much exactly how this process will go. And honestly, Shelley and I have already started this process. So I've asked the library board to take a look at their budget next year and their request, to go through that process and determine what they're looking for. And part of my thinking with appointing the library board now is to get the members that aren't part of the current board but would be new members involved in that process, so they can see why the library board made this recommendation to the council. So when they take over January 1, they're not just throwing a budget in their lap and saying, here's what previous board recommended, council decided to give you this, and then having to play all that catch up. But that is the exact process and how it will work. Now, it's up to the council to determine, do I agree with that request? Do I like that request? Do I understand what they're proposing to do? Do we want to support that? Do we want to support that sort of request?
But I think it's going to be just a dollar request. They're not going to say, well, we need more children's programming.
No, they're going to give us their whole budget.
But we'll be able to cross something out and say, don't spend it on
no.
that.
No, but you can say that,
Right.
So let's say the library says they want 1.4 million next year. And here's what that means to them. Here's what they get. They get this many hours, they get pay adjustments of this amount, they add this many programs, whatever. And the council, looking at our levy as a whole, says we can't afford that. We can afford 1.2 million. The council then understands, because this is a department. I mean, we're working together here. Shelley will be at our meetings talking about this stuff if we have some concerns. Shelley will then explain, okay, so if the council feels comfortable with 1.2, here's what that'll mean. We asked for this reason. You're going to cut it down to this. Here's how we will adjust then. Based on her board's guidance, here's how we'll adjust then to get that. And then the council can decide, okay, we feel comfortable with that. Or you can decide, well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I'll go with the 1.4 still. But that'll be the back and forth that'll happen as part of this. But Shelley will be getting her guidance from her board on budget recommendation. The council will provide guidance back that we don't, you may not feel comfortable with it. They can, decide, and ultimately you may not come to a full agreement. The library board may say, nope, we want this. The council may say, nope, we're giving this. Ultimately what happens is the council will decide that amount of the levy. The board will have to then make that adjustment regardless of if they agree or not. They'll figure out how to make that work. But how they make it work is the library board decision.
Just for clarification on just a couple things about the matter at hand. So right now there's 7 board members currently. Okay. Eight, okay, thank you. And then what we're thinking of, whether, what Joy suggests, some of those current members might be on the committee that you're thinking.
Sure.
Let's say, a handful of them, 3 or whatever. But then we're also gonna try to form a new board for the future going forward. But some of those members could be the same person. So the number, I'm struggling a little bit with, I mean, basically, do we do 9, do we do 7? If we do 9 and the county appoints people to that, now we have even more. But again, we can keep drawing from that same pool. If they're dedicated to the library like they've proven they have, because they're currently serving on the board and they have an interest and the mayor thinks they're qualified, that person would be very valuable to us because they've seen it in the past. They'll see the transition we're doing, and then they'll be there day one when we January 1. So I guess I'm struggling with the maybe the conflict that we're seeing in front of us of the numbers. Why the importance of the smaller number versus the larger number, if that makes sense.
So I still think we're talking about almost 2 different things.
Yeah.
So like the staff proposal is basically you're going to appoint the 2024 library board, which probably will consist of maybe half of that board probably will be current members. I don't know for sure, but potentially it could be. Obviously, the ones that are on the current board will stay on there. The rest will basically be just an ad hoc committee that'll show up at library board meetings, be able to be involved in Shelley's process with their board. So when January 1 rolls around, they've been involved for 6, 7 months, 8 months, whatever, 6, 7 months. They've been involved for a while in this process, so they know what's going on. Councilmember Knutsen's proposal is different. So this is a 3-member committee, one of the 3 would be a council member. The other 2 just have to be residents of the city. And this committee would basically give the council advice on this transition from the joint to the city-only library. And it would be issues related to the transfer of ownership of the collection, fixtures, equipment, software, and designated funds to the library, and then also issues with physical facilities, budget, employees, management of the new library, things like that. So it's almost, again, these are all things that are under city control.
Right.
So it's a committee to advise the council on how we should transition. So I do think we're actually looking at kind of 2 separate things here almost. So
Right.
If
True,
the council,
but what Mike is saying is true. What I said, we could still stand up that board ahead of time so they're not signing in on January 1st. We could, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I do agree with his comment there that both could happen.
Yep.
That we could start a small group going. So please finish your comment. I apologize for interrupting.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that on the council side, I think staff will do all this. I think we're going to make recommendations on how this transition is going to happen when we talk about options as far as the physical facilities, the budget, things like that. We're going to provide some input on this. Like, right now we charge, a rent for that. Now that it's transitioning to a city only, we'll look at more of a kind of uniform structure like we do with some of our other departments that pay kind of an admin fee for, towards what city hall staff have to do for like utilities and things like that. So we'll make some recommendations on that. Ultimately, it's going to be the council decision on how to do it because that number plays into really how much we have to levy. We've kind of had this little bit of an informal conversation before about, yes, we could levy up to here, but we can also get some of that levy back as we reimburse the city for costs and things like that. Yeah. So we're going to present those options as part of this whole process. But again, I'll never tell the council not if you feel more comfortable having a group assisting with that, that's fine if you feel that that's necessary.
Can I take a crack at this real quick, Mayor?
My turn after you.
I'm kind of chomping at the bit on this.
I just want to change this from trigonometry down to algebra. Why can't we do the 9-member appointment and then have 3 officials of those appointments as ex officio to advise,
So,
as Joyce or Joy would?
look, here's my, Joyce, did you want to jump in
Yeah,
first, or?
Yeah, thank you. I guess my viewpoint on this is, wait a minute, isn't that Shelley's and Paul Burning's jobs to give us this information and to advise the council on what's needed for the library? So that's my comment.
And I think you're right. So here's my take on this. Number one, I think that if we set up, even if they run parallel rails at the same time, coincidentally, you have redundancy, duplicative effort, and as Sarah brought up, it's going to take an advisory committee, 3 people, to get up to speed on the library. As they're doing that, our new board is going to be getting up to speed on the library. Our staff is going to be working on how this whole structure is going to work and bring that to us. And I don't understand not just the necessity for this, I don't understand the logic in this. It just doesn't make sense to me that we would have a redundant board that is going to be coming to our staff, taking our staff time to try to learn about the library, going to the library and the library board and taking up their staff time to come up with recommendations that this board could easily be doing, by the way. At the same time, that new board is going to be going to the staff of the library and asking for assistance, and maybe coming to our staff asking for assistance. So it's taking up additional staff time as well. It's going to be costly for us, and it just to me doesn't make sense because it is redundant. And I mean, you're correct in assuming that there will be a number of the people that are currently on the board that I will be recommending for appointment or reappointment, and that have already expressed a desire to continue to sit on the board. They see this obviously as a period where they not only can be helpful in transitioning, but they see it as an exciting time for the board, for the library, for the city. And so for those reasons, they want to stay on the board. So that's with respect to that issue. With respect to the 9 members versus 7 members, I know that there are people, and to some extent I'm in this camp too, but not on this issue, where I guess I'm parochial as other people, thinking that because this is now a city library, it should be city people that sit on the board. But having been on that board since 2012, Roy, I'm sure you remember when I was appointed. Must have been a red letter day. I understand that the people that represent the communities that have been our partners have been an extremely important component of the decision-making process for this library. And we have to separate those representatives from the community politics that unfortunately they represent, but they don't, right? I mean, they're coming from those communities. They have heard, and we've heard from those board members, the lamentations that their municipalities are not able to contribute more, or were not able to contribute more to the library. But that didn't deter their work. They still had a huge commitment to the library and have made it what it is today. And we have, I don't know how many of the people that are representing our former partners that want to be on that board, but I have heard from at least one who I am very much inclined to put back on the board, and I think that she should be there. I think she's been an integral part to getting us to where we're at. She has a lot of experience, more than probably everybody else on that board combined, but she's not from the city of Hudson. And I really would like to see her on the board, and I hope that this council would agree that at least for now, it makes sense to have continuity from these people that have been representing their communities faithfully, diligently, as well as the interests of the library in particular. So that would be my recommendation going forward. So I would say that I'm requesting now that my suggestion for how this should go, which is what the staff suggestion is as well, be placed on the agenda for consideration for our next meeting.
It's on this one if you want to vote on it.
Oh, is it action? Can
It's
we?
action.
Oh, I didn't think it was actionable.
So just quick clarification with that. We've been having some concerns about the discussion and possible action sort of stuff, because technically, if it's on the agenda, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
So we've had this conversation with the city attorney, because we don't want to get caught up in this game a little bit of, well, it just says discussion, or it doesn't say action, or it does say action, we want to take action. We're just putting the agenda item on. If it's on the agenda, the council technically can do whatever they want with it.
Okay.
They can discuss it, they can act it, so everything that's on this agenda is actionable. And that was our point of it.
Okay.
Is that way, we clarify that point, that if you see it, you can take whatever action you'd like on it. So it can be taken action.
Okay.
So I have a question. So how many members do you want that are from, do you want one from each of the township or the former partner? Are you planning, do you want to specify?
We can only have 2 by statute.
Right.
Oh, we can have 2 by statute.
And that's the recommendation, is to go to the 2. So 7
Okay.
from the city, 2 from outside the city, 1 from the school district.
Okay.
So
I'll
That's
move
10.
that we
that's,
go out.
Oh, that is
That's
10.
10.
that's 10?
But I don't, does the
Yes,
the
it's
one?
9 plus the person from the
The
school
school
board.
district,
Yep,
right.
that's an
Yeah.
extra, that's also an
Right,
extra.
which is why
So we could have 12 if the.
Possible.
if
That's the
county-
8th instead of 7, right, that we have right now.
Correct.
I move we go out for the 9 members and post it now. The longer we get them, or the sooner we get them in, the longer they'll have to get up to speed and educated. And I would be open to outside representatives.
So the 9 members, which would
Up
include
to.
2 from outside the.
Yes,
Up to 2.
and that's a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I would just like to say that I do feel like we've heard one side of the story. And I think you all got an email. My husband was quite involved in the library in the past. I prefer not to refer to him often. I'm here serving as myself with my own ideas. But there's a lot of knowledge that we need to get up to speed on. Mr. Schoberg himself spoke eloquently about how it's a community center, and it is. It's a community center. For the people who wanted us to save the fire hall, to have a community center and meeting rooms, we have one. It's our public library. And children's programming and all those activities are wonderful. But that is not how we're going to get reimbursed from the county, by children's programming. So I would like to challenge everyone here to educate yourself on that, so you're prepared to ask the board members. Because in private conversations, the mayor has shared with me that he would like to, he appreciates the hard work of all the board members. And I don't doubt that, and I don't discredit the work that the current board members have done. But when the Library Board of Trustees had 4 municipalities, they did have to go begging, hat in hand, trying to get money, and that was very difficult. But they also, that was sort of like buzzing bees, what the town of Hudson and the town of St. Joseph had to say, because there were 4, and they didn't really have to listen to those 4 government entities, because once they were in place, they're in place, and they have autonomy, and they have the money to spend that we give them. So we are going to need to address this as residents of Hudson, of how we are going to get our circulation rates up so that we do get more reimbursement through the county system. The other municipalities, those elected officials made decisions based on what they thought was best in their community, their levy limit. I do want to reiterate this again for the general public, that our spending on the library falls under our levy limit. So we can only spend up to what we're up against that for law enforcement, for our public works. We have that levy limit. Even the bonding that we're hopefully going to approve tonight, we have to fit in the payments under our levy limit. The county does not have that levy limit. It is a quirk of the state of Wisconsin. Libraries are very elevated and appreciated and supported in our state. And in the state of Wisconsin, the counties can fund the libraries till the cows come home, and they don't have to account for how much they spend because it does not have to fall under their levy limit. So we need to be educated because now we're the one elected body that supervises the trustees in our limited way. So that's all I'm asking for you, is to really make an effort to become engaged and informed about that and not just rely on the library, because understandably, they didn't report to us very often. As City Council, we were one of 4 entities that might contribute ideas to them. Well, now we're the one. And we do respect the autonomy of the library director and the library trustees and applaud the work that they're doing. But we do have to be realistic about the money because we have a lot of other funding challenges that fall under our levy limit. And the county doesn't. They can spend very generously because they don't have to account for that under their levy limit. It's a quirk of the state of Wisconsin. And I just wanted to put that point out there tonight. Thank you for your time and for listening to me.
Thanks, Joy. Anybody else?
Thank you, Councilmember Knudsen, and I want to have you rest assured that I'm sure all of us take that responsibility very seriously, myself included.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. So the county, I mean, they have levy limits, just not with the library, or they don't even have a levy limit?
Library is exempt from the county levy limit. Yes, that's
Library
correct.
is exempt.
The library,
Okay,
so.
that was what I was trying to clarify, yes.
Exactly. In other words, they don't have a cap on what they can allow to be spent. And they have recently, under the influence of some very significant and influential people, raised it from 70% to 100% reimbursement. So that has been a change which led to what has been called a shortfall in the funding here. And so it has a lot of issues to sort through. And I guess I do feel that some of it has been a misrepresentation of the work of prior mayors that I think very highly of, married to one of them. So anyway, that's just me.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Resolution number 15-23, providing for the issuance, sale, and delivery of $4,770,000 in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2023A of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, establishing the terms and conditions therefore, directing their execution and delivery, creating a debt service account therefore, and awarding the sale thereof.
Put some money in there for the library.
Who was the last one up there?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I didn't mean to jump up before you introduced me, but...
Sean, good to see you, man.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Good evening, council. I was here about a month and a half ago, and what we discussed that evening was the financing for the 2023 and 2024 capital projects. And as the mayor mentioned, there are 2 resolutions on the council agenda tonight related to approving competitive sale of bonds and notes that were done earlier today. So I've got just 5 slides here that'll cover the big topic, but as I move through it, feel free to ask any questions. And I believe all the council members, thanks to city staff, got a little more detailed sale reports for the bonds and the notes earlier. And certainly if you have any questions on those, please let me know. Okay, so just as a quick reminder, we did discuss going through with city staff and then with the council initial resolutions related to the 2 issues you see on the screen. The 4.7+ million bond issue for longer useful life assets, streets and parks. We had estimated an interest rate in the pre-sale report, fixed rate over 20 years of about 4.32% at the time we talked a month and a half ago. And then secondly, for the shorter useful life projects, including the fire truck, which I think is longer useful life than the 10-year notes, but per a policy arrangement you have with the fire department, you want to stick to 10-year repayments on that. And that's about 3.4 million, and we had estimated a rate about 3.83%. Now, since we last met, a couple things we've worked on. I believe the council saw the preliminary official statements that were sent out. Those go to bidders local around the country, asking them to put in a bid on the sale. And we also use that document, as well as other financial information from the city, to update the city's bond rating. As I've mentioned to you in the past, you have an excellent bond rating at the AA2 level. And what I did on this slide is just a quick summary of what Moody's Investor Service said after a research on material we provided to them, as well as about an hour plus discussion with city staff. Actually, a little less this time, since we did have that discussion last fall when we did the financing for some tax increment projects. I'm happy to say they did affirm us at the AA2 level, so we stayed at the same level we've been. AA1 would be the next step, and then AAA is the best. I think certainly Aaron or their staff members may have some thoughts on the call. From my perspective, they did give some reasonably serious consideration to whether the city should move up in rating. They made the decision at this point not to do that, but it's a good trend in that they were seriously considering it. And as you look through the more detailed report, you see a lot of positives in there. One of the, when they talk about challenges, they talk about elevated leverage. What is that? That is, because of levy limits, you just mentioned in the last discussion, really one of the very few ways to make capital project financing work because of levy limits is debt issuance, the issuance of general obligation debt. So I do see a lot of communities with that same elevated leverage challenge. You see that again and again. It's kind of universal in Wisconsin. Okay, but big picture, staying at that AA2 excellent rating level. So with the official statements and with this rating, we put out for bid this morning the 2 sales. On the 4.7 million, we got 8 bids, which is great to see. On both sales, the bids are coming from local, but they're also coming from all over the country. And that's another benefit of that excellent rating. BOK Financial Securities, it's actually the Bank of Oklahoma. They have a strong presence, though, in Wisconsin. That is who that is. Their winning interest rate was 3.74%. And we talked about in the pre-sale report, we were more around 4.5%. So that was really good to see. Nice to see that competition to get to that bid. The other bidders, just for your piece of information, very close to it. It wasn't like they were one off and far stronger than all the other bids. On the note issues, more the same. One less bids, but again, a lot of interest. Northland Securities out of the Twin Cities with an interest rate of 3.23% was the best bid. So in both cases, from our perspective, we were very pleased to see these results for the city's debt. As you know, lots of things going on in the world. I think I had mentioned to you before, I'm glad we're going through this process now. More stress in the news today about the federal debt limit, and those kind of things can have impacts on this. And there was that bank failure as well, which I don't think had any negative effects on the bids today, but it's out there. And if that trend continues, it'll long-term have an impact, I think. Yep.
Say, real quick,
sure.
There wasn't very much, I mean, relative terms, but percentage rate, to keep it maybe both in the same house, or do you want to diversify when you're doing this?
Oh, in terms of the bonds and the notes, there are certain projects that the only way to issue bonds for under Wisconsin law is you have to go through a referendum. They're not on a list. When we did those initial resolutions, those were for the bonds. Some of the types of projects that we put into the notes, they're not on that list that we can do those initial resolutions for. So you'd actually have to go through a referendum process to be able to put those projects into the bond issue.
Okay.
Yep. So in terms of actions this evening, with the results of the 2 sales, there are 2 resolutions. I think the mayor noted the bond resolution. That would need to be approved this evening for the 4.7 million, and the notes, there would be a resolution also prepared by the city's bond council for 3.44 million. Would be our recommendation based on the 2 bids from BOK and from Northland Securities that the city does accept those bids and lock into those interest rates. If you approve it, the closings will be a few weeks from now, and then that'll position the city for their funding for capital projects in 23 and 24. One nice thing about the current rate environment too, I think those dollars can be invested at an interest rate probably higher than what we're paying, which is unusual. We haven't been in that position in recent years. Investment rates have been very low. But Mayor, at this point, maybe I'll turn it back to you with any questions from yourself or the council.
Anybody have questions?
I have a quick question. The rating, did they take these two bonds into account for that? I guess my question is that a rating before we do this?
Oh,
or
yes.
After?
It is including these issues.
It is including,
Yeah.
okay.
And in fact, with that leverage question, they also ask us, can we see your capital improvement plan going forward?
Yeah.
So they're fully aware
Okay.
that the city's talking very seriously about public works. They are taking all that into account.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? We have a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution 1523.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Resolution number 15 dash, oh, I did that one.
16.
Resolution number 16-23, providing for the issuance, sale, and delivery of $3,440,000 in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2023B of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, establishing the terms and conditions, therefore, directing their execution and delivery, creating a debt service account, therefore, and awarding the sale thereof.
I move to approve Resolution 1623.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good to see you, Sean. Thanks.
Council, good to see you as well.
All right, take care. I don't have anything. Anybody?
I just wanted to thank Mike Mraz for over the weekend with Arbor Day and Earth Day, and the members of the Urban Forestry Board and some Boy Scouts, all of who gave their time to plant trees, mulch trees, take care of our lakefront park, educate people. That certainly is above and beyond. So definitely noticed and greatly appreciated.
Great. Thank you for that, Sarah. Thank you, Mike.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, I've
Joyce?
got a question. Joy, something that's come up with a question is that in the information that you put in there with changing the ordinance, you had the old address of the library. Was that just a clerical error? Because people are confused about that.
I'm sure it is, but it wasn't adopted, so it's
Oh,
a typo.
okay.
Like I said, I was actually on vacation when
Oh.
I did that red line.
Okay. I just wanted to
So
clarify it. so
thank
that
you for
people-
catching that, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I
What's
think
that? We're not moving the library? Oh, good. Phew.
But I would thank you for mentioning it, Joyce, because I think it's important that we work on the ordinance now, because we're taking a leap ahead now without doing the ordinance work.
Sure.
If you'll take note.
No, I agree.
It's, we do need to do that work, and yes, that was probably a typo, but
All
thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Joy.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.